In this part of the second lesson, you will see the measurement tools used to compute and assign measures to the 3D environment. As shown in the previous lesson, we have set an approximate value for the stage size, because we don't know the exact proportion between the grid and the 3D environment. There is the option to assign a real size to the environment with the tools of the 3D Position Editor. From the main toolbar are the two related tools, Get Measure and Set Stage Size. The Get Measure tool computes a measure from a piece of the 3D environment. To see how this tool works, click on this tool. The Tool Options panel is filled with the properties that pertain to the activated tool. In this case, the panel is filled with two options that can be selected, Front Measure and Lasso Measure. The front measure selects a segment in the viewport, and the application will compute the related length in meters. The lasso measure is similar. It establishes a polyline, and the application will compute the related length in meters. For example, from the top view, select the front measure option, and click one time to establish the first vertex of the segment, and a second time to establish the second vertex of the segment. You can see that in the Tools option panel, the measure field is filled with the computed length. So with this tool, you can understand if the measures assigned to the environment are right or not. For example, let's compute the width of the Pyramid of the Louvre. With the camera tools, move and zoom in until there is a clear view of this part of the environment. Select the Get Measure tool, then select Front Measure, and click on the two sides of the pyramid. You can see that the measure is 1.15 meters, which in this case is not realistic. Knowing that the width of the pyramid is 35.42 meters, we have to change the stage size so that when we use the Get Measure tool, the result will be close to 35.42 meters. To do this, use the Set Stage Size tool. Click on this tool and you see that the Tool Options panel shows a section asking you to choose the length in meters to be assigned to a part of the environment. In this case, put 35.42, and as for the Get Measure tool, click one time to establish the first vertex of the segment, and a second time to establish the second vertex of the segment. Notice that after the operation is completed, the grid assumes a different view. The grid squares are more compact because the size assigned to the grid has changed. Now, by choosing again the Get Measure option, you can see that the width of the pyramid is a value near to what was set before. In this part of the second lesson, we will learn how to create positions in the 3D environment. We will use the most important tools provided by the application in terms of designing a site. First of all, we will present an overview of the tools to see how they work, and then we will use them to create the real positions that will be stored in our 3D environment. From the four viewports, select the top view, which in this case is the best viewpoint. This is because in the case of the palace, it is easier to insert positions when viewed from the top. Zoom in on the area desired to insert the positions. Since we are only operating from one particular view, close the other viewports. There are several ways to place the positions. There are four tools. The first tool, Make Position Single, is for a single position. First choose the name, Then click on an area of the viewport. For example, click on this tool, then place in the viewport a single position called Pose 1. Notice that there is a section called Vectors Creation. This is used to establish the angles of the vectors, from which we can establish the orientation of the shells. There are two ways to do this. First is polygon related. This places the vectors in relation to the slope of the polygon. The second is called custom. This establishes the slope of only one vector, in this case the y vector, the vector that points to the sky, and the other two vectors will adapt themselves. For example, choose polygon related and create a position on the viewport. Notice that the y vector follows the perpendicular of the polygon. In order to see the vector's direction, enable the front view and move the camera in the area in which you have created the position. You can see the y vector pointing up and the x and z vectors lying on the ground polygon. The x vector points to the direction of the shot. Tilt 0 degrees at ground, 90 degrees at y, and 180 degrees in the opposite direction. The z vector points as pan 90 degrees value. Pan 0, or no value, is the orientation pointed by x, and 180 the direction opposite to x. To continue our second lesson, let's proceed to another tool that creates positions, called the Make Position Array tool. This tool selects a rectangle on the viewport. The rectangle is defined by how many rows and columns are used to place positions. In this case, both the rows and columns are the sides of the rectangle. There is front count, which is the columns, and depth count, which is the rows. Here you will see a section called Vectors Creation, which is the same tool learned previously. There are two ways to create the positions inside the rectangle. Position by count, which establishes the rows count and the columns count, and position by measure, which establishes the distance between positions, both for the rows and the columns. For example, choose Position by Count and enter 3 for the column and 4 for the rows. In the position format string, enter the name of the positions. This name has a format that is divided into 3 sections. The name of position, in this case, pause. This number represents the starting count of the positions that will be inserted. With the mouse, position on the viewport and click once to establish the first side, the column count. The second click establishes the second side, the row count. The third click creates the positions. In this case, 12 positions have been created. As in the previous tool, we can see the front view, enable the camera tools, and zoom in and rotate to see the positions created. Click on the Undo menu, and then we close the front view. Notice that with some tools you will need to click more than one time to have the final result of that particular tool. For example, this case requires 1, 2, and 3 clicks. If you make an error, you can cancel the operation with Escape key and start over. Continue with the second lesson. Another tool that creates positions is the Make Position line. This tool has many functions. In the Type of Creation section is the simple lines used to create several positions, numbering them as in the previous tool. Select Simple Lines, put position 0, 0 in the position format string, then click several times on the viewport, and use the mouse to draw your position's path. To confirm the insertion of positions, use the right click to insert the positions at the points you have previously clicked. Click on Undo to cancel the changes in order to look at the other operations. There's the lasso option that creates the positions based on the count option between the vertexes on the segments. This is different from simple lines, which creates positions only on the vertexes. Instead, lasso creates positions on the segments. For the example in count option, enter 6. With the mouse, draw the path, and with the right mouse, click to confirm the insertion. Click on Undo to cancel the changes. Finally is the Measure option. That represents a meters measure between the positions. This tool starts from the first position. On the path, it computes the meters set in Measure option, inserting other positions until the end of the path is reached. For example, put 70 in Measure option, then build the path on the viewport, so every 70 meters a position will be created. In this case, based on the meters, you can count the number of positions inserted. Finally is the tool called Make Position Circle. As its name describes, this tool creates circular paths. In the Type of Creation section, there are 3 types of paths: circle path, ellipse path, and arc path, each a piece of the circle. In this tool also, you can set both the positions by count and positions by a measure. These are the same parameters used in the previous tool. The section called Pivot Type establishes the center of the type of figure established in the Type of Creation tool. With the Existing Position option, the center of the figure is fixed from an existing position. With this combo box, we can select the position that will be our center. The same operation is valid for the other figures. For example, put pause 0, 0 in position format string. Use the Direct option, select Circle, and then Positions by Count, and in Count, insert 10. Click one time to establish the center. Then with the mouse, establish the size of the circle, and then a last click to create the positions. Notice that the positions are created in a clockwise direction. In general, the vectors change the directions based on the polygon shape.
Now that we
Now
have
that we have
explained
explained
the
the
tool
tool
feature,
feature,
let's
proceed to
proceed to
create
create
positions in the 3D
positions in 3D environment.
Let's create 5
Let's
positions
create
in this
5
area
positions in this
Position
area
Line tool.
using the Make Position
Inserting
Line
pause
tool.
line 0, 0 as the name of the
Inserting
position.
post line
Use
pound
Simple
character
Lines
00
option and
as the
create
name of a
5
position.
positions.
Use Simple Lines option and create 5 positions. Then use the Make Position
Then,
Array tool,
use the Make Position Array
inserting
tool,
post rect
inserting
pound character
pause rect
00
0, 0
in the position
in the
format
position format
string,
string.
enter 2 for
Enter
the column
2 for the column
and
and
3 for
3
the
for the
rows
rows.
to create the
create the
positions
positions
in
in
the
the
viewport. One click will establish
One click
the
will
first
establish
side
the first
for
side
the
for the
columns.
columns.
A
second
second
click
click
will
will establish the second
side
side for the
A
rows.
third click
And a third
confirms
click
the
confirms
insertion.
the insertion.
You can see that when you create other
You can see
positions
that
using the
when you
previous
create
tools,
other
the vectors
positions
created
using
before
the
are
previous
deselected,
tools, the
while the new
vectors
ones have a
created
different
before
color because
are
they are selected.
deselected, while
In
the new
order to
ones
select
have
a
a different
particular group
color
of
because
positions,
they are
use the
selected.
Positions
In
Selection
order
tool.
to select a particular group of positions, use the Positions Selection tool.
For example, select
For
the first group
example,
of
select
positions
the
that were
first
previously
group
created,
of positions that
and
were
notice
previously
that when the positions
created,
are selected,
and
their color
notice
becomes
that when the
white,
positions
and the other
are
groups of
selected,
positions have
their
different
color
colors.
becomes white, and the other groups of positions have different colors. Since you can insert many positions in the viewport,
the view can become
the view
confused
can
due to the
become
length of
confused
vectors.
due to the length
So you
of
can change the
vectors.
length of vectors.
So you can change the length
Go to the
of
menu,
vectors.
Edit,
Go to the menu
and
Edit
select Preferences.
and select Preferences. In this
In this
case, a
case,
new window appears, and you can see
a
particular
section
section called the Position Vectors,
in which you can modify their length.
For example,
put a 15
put
value.
a 15 value,
Click on Apply,
click on Apply,
and you see the result in
and
the
you
viewport.
see the result in the viewport.
Click on Close
Click
to
on
return
Close
to the
to
viewport.
return to the viewport. Now let's proceed to insert other positions in this
using
area.
Positions Line tool. Select the lasso option.
Using
Enter 5
Position Line
positions
tool,
in Count section.
select the last option, enter 5 positions in Count section,
And finally,
and finally enter
Pause
Pause Lasso, pound character 00.
Click on
Click
the
on the
viewport
viewport
and insert the
and
positions in this
insert
area.
the positions in this area. Finally, insert other positions
in this area. Select the Make Position Circle tool.
in
Select the
this
Circle
area.
option.
Select the Make Position Circle
For
tool.
example, Positions by
Select
Count.
the Circle option. For example, Positions by Count, entering 5 in count. And finally, enter the Pause Circle,
00,
pound character
name
00 name
in
in the position format string. Click one time for the center.
Click one time for the center.
And enlarge the
And enlarge
size
the size
of the circle with the mouse.
With the
With the
last
last
click,
click,
you
you
create
create the positions.